I hope you're enjoying Bayside Church Online, and happy Mother's Day to all the mums. We actually have one of our little girls in our Bayside Church Forever home. Her name is Tico Comelo, and she turned 1 during the week, so a very happy first birthday to that gorgeous little girl. And we've got a whole new generation now, Alice, of little girls in the Forever home.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. All the boys have grown up.
That's right.
And
they've had a good chance at life.
They have, haven't
Yes,
they? Yeah,
yes.
a much better start to the one, or much better life to the one that they would have had without Acres of Love and the Bayside Forever home.
Yeah.
Well, it's lovely to have you as part of Church Online, and I'm going to ask Alice a number of questions, but just for those of you who don't know Alice, I've known Alice and her late husband Charles. I've met them back in 1988, beginning of 88, and then they joined Bayside Church in the middle of the 90s. And so we've worked together, Charles and Alice and myself, for 30 years. Charles went to be with Jesus 4 years ago, so you and I have been working together
34.
now for 34 years, and it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And I'm sure, I've enjoyed working with you, and I think you've enjoyed working.
Oh, yes.
You've got to say the right thing, right?
Of course, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a joy.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to ask you a few quick fire questions to start with.
Okay.
What's your favourite drink?
Chai latte.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. Summer or winter, your favourite season?
I like both.
Okay.
Yes.
For different reasons?
Yes, because I can dress up in the winter time.
Yes.
And I can
right. Undress.
Discard in the summer.
Let's not go there.
No, I won't.
Okay. How do you start your day?
Oh, with devotions and a cup of tea.
Ah, beautiful.
Yes, have to have the cup of tea.
Cup of tea and Jesus.
Yes.
Two of the greatest things on the planet. And what advice would you give your young self?
I think to take more notice of studying while my brain was able to take everything in.
Okay, great. That's good advice. One thing that you would change about yourself?
I think my height.
Your height? Oh, you poor wee thing.
I'm shrinking.
Oh, yeah, that's it. You used to be taller.
Yes.
So you'd like to have been taller in life?
No, I was all right up there, but now I've come down.
Okay, fair enough. So your height. Something that you don't like doing?
I don't like being late.
Great, I'm with you.
No.
100%.
Yes. Charles used to say it's better to be 5 minutes early.
Yes.
Late.
Well, my
1
father-in-law
minute late.
says anything less than 5 minutes early is late, so which is great. But at least you and Charles were equal on that, like you were in agreement.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes.
It's different when you have one person who likes to be on time and another person who will remain nameless in this conversation, who is invariably running late. So anyway, that's your favourite food?
Roast beef and Yorkshire pudding.
Yum. You got me.
Very pommy.
Beautiful. Aye, by gum. Lovely. The first thing you notice about someone when you meet them?
Their eyes.
Okay. Lovely. Your favourite TV show?
The Chase.
The Chase. Okay. The British one or the Aussie one?
Both of them.
Okay.
Yes,
Lovely.
I record them and then look at them in slow time.
I like the British one. Bradley, whatever his name is,
Yes.
he is so funny.
Yes, he is.
And I love it when something happens that makes him laugh and he just loses it.
Yeah, I like it when he sort of thinks of something, he goes...
Yes, he puts that look on his face, doesn't he?
You wonder what's coming next.
The weirdest thing that you've ever eaten?
Chicken's feet.
Okay.
Yes.
Was that in an Asian country?
Yes, it was.
Because you've travelled a lot, you and Charles, in ministry, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yes.
But you will have eaten some really unusual things.
Yes, and once they gave me little teeny weeny fish, and they were probably an inch long, hundreds of them in this dish, and they stuck in my teeth, and they were horrible.
Oh, like anchovies?
No, it wasn't an anchovy taste.
Okay.
It was just crackly, and I didn't like it.
A little crunchy fish.
Then someone gave me, as the guest of the place, they gave me the chicken's head.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, it sort of slipped on the floor.
Oh,
and
what
the
a shame.
dog got it.
Oh, you'd have been devastated.
Yes, I
Yeah.
was. And I said, well, don't worry, because I really like bananas.
It is interesting though, isn't it, being in different cultures. I remember
It
when
is.
I was in Mozambique and you go and visit a family and often they're incredibly poor.
That's right.
And they scrape a few things together to be able to give you as an honoured guest.
Oh, look, they have been more than generous. They have given when they've little to give.
Yes, so true.
I've always appreciated
Yeah.
the travelling ministry.
But it is hard to eat things that you're given, and you know that to not eat it would have been dishonouring
to them,
to
yes,
the
yes.
people. And so, yeah, I just put it in my mouth and swallow and try not to think about it.
Yes, even pasta.
Even pasta, yes, yeah, pushing it. So a couple of more of these. What's your favourite childhood memory?
Going with my father. My father used to take me for walks in the country. And because he was a country person himself, he knew the names of trees and what was good to touch, what you kept your hands away from, sort of herbal medicinal things.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes, he was really good.
Clever
And I
guy.
remember once he took me through a field of buttercups and daisies. And in England, they were just beautiful.
Yes.
And there was another couple there picking them. And I can remember saying, don't take all of them because I'm coming back this way.
Oh, bless you. How old would you have been?
Oh, about 5.
Oh, gorgeous.
But I could see them picking them. Mind you, there were millions.
Right. They wouldn't have been able to take them all. That's a lovely memory though, isn't it? So walking with your dad. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And then the last one, before we get into other conversation, is if you could say one thing to God, what would you say?
Thank you for looking after me all these years.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that's a kind of a lovely segue, I think, into my first question here, Alice, because I've heard your story before. You're one of those people who can't pinpoint an exact time where you were converted to Jesus Christ. Tell us about how your faith began.
Well, it was really through my grandmother. My mother had a very bad birth, and I was declared dead.
Wow.
And so I was blue and lifeless. And my grandmother in the room took me, wrapped me in a shawl, and prayed for me. Wow. She was a very godly woman. And there was a bond between us for 9 years before she died. And I used to spend a lot of time with her, weekends, and she lived her life as a Christian.
Beautiful.
And she prayed for everyone. If I slept with her overnight, we had to talk to Jesus.
Beautiful.
For half an hour before we went to sleep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then she took me to the Salvation Army, because she was a Baptist, but the Salvation Army was just across the road, so it was easy for her to get there.
Yep.
I went with her, and I had to stand on a seat, on the seat, otherwise I couldn't see, and I used to look around, see all these funny ladies with bonnets and bows underneath their chin, rattling their tambourines.
Right, yes.
But, you know, there was such joy in that place. And then they sang, when the roll is called up yonder.
Oh,
you know,
beautiful.
when the roll
Yeah.
is called up yonder. And I was really taken with this. And I used to ask Grandma, you know, what did all this mean? And so she'd tell me that, you know, if Jesus became my friend, if I made Jesus my friend, then he'd be with me forever. And I could always talk to him about anything. And it lit a spark within me.
Beautiful.
And so I used to, I used to talk to him.
Yeah.
Because I was an only child, and very few children were around me. And It was wonderful.
Beautiful. And that's lovely, isn't it? What an amazing story of, and as you say, you only knew her for 9 years before she went to be with the Lord. But that has set you up in such a good way for your entire life.
Yes, yes.
Magnificent.
She really was a beautiful lady, but she lived her Christianity.
Yeah, wonderful. Which we all should.
Yes.
It's a living faith. Yeah.
I mean, she hadn't got a perfect family, but she prayed for them and just believed God, you know, that he would bring them to that point of knowing and loving Jesus.
Stunning. I remember you saying to me once that you have never known a time where you didn't believe in God and love Jesus. So you've just grown into that faith.
That's right. Well, when I was with her, I went down to fish at the River Trent. My mother had told me not to do, so I didn't take my little fishing thing. The net.
The net, yeah, sure.
I left that at home. But I went down with 2 bottles with string round to throw in and try and catch these little minis. And the other one I was going to put in the jar and take it home. But the first time I did it, I lost the jar. So I just got one. The only thing I could do was look for them in the water and try and scoop them up with my hand, and I fell into the Trent.
Oh, no.
I couldn't swim. England, you don't learn to swim when you're young.
Yeah.
And I could tell you what's at the bottom of the Trent, everything. And as I went down, I can remember calling out, even as a little girl, a very little girl, Jesus, help me. And at that point, there was a hand came into the and pulled me out. And it was a man there. He said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yes, thank you." And he disappeared.
Wow.
So I believe that was an angel.
Yes.
I didn't know anything about angels then, but thinking back, you know, and then, of course, I had to go running to Grandma and saying, "Don't tell Mummy what I did."
That's all right. You're wet and soggy and in big trouble. Let's fast forward a few years. How did you first meet Charles, and was it love at first sight?
I met him at his girlfriend's birthday party.
Oh, right. His girlfriend's.
And my school friend she was.
Yep.
Actually, she only died four weeks ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
she was
So you've been in touch that whole time?
The whole time, yes.
Amazing.
She was my bridesmaid. She was godmother to my children, to Rosemary. Yes.
So you met Charles there?
I met Charles at
But he was going out with your friend?
Because he was in the Royal Navy, when he was home, he used to take her out to, you know. So they weren't sort of that close, but we make fun of that. It was his girlfriend, you know. Yes. So.
Okay. And was it love at first sight?
Oh, yes.
It was?
Yes.
For both of you?
Yes, yes. I felt sick. I couldn't eat anything at the table, which was not like me, because I like my food.
Yeah. So true.
And he was sitting next to me and said, "Would you like this?" And, "No, thank you." All shy like.
Beautiful.
And we hardly said a word all evening.
Yeah.
But as we were going home, he says, "You will write to me, won't you?"
Oh,
and
beautiful.
That was it.
And it all went from there. How long was it before you got married?
7 months.
Goodness, that's a whirlwind. And you thought Charles was a Christian?
Oh, yes.
Because he was going to church with you. You were in the choir,
yes.
if I remember correctly?
Yes. Well, he wanted to come home at the Christmas time. That was the 4th of December, and he got leave at Christmas. So he said, could he see me? And I said, well, yes, you can, but I'll be at church the day he'd suggested. I'll be at church in the morning. So I said, you can either come to church or meet me afterwards. And I thought, that would tell me whether or not he's a Christian. Because I was only nominal in those days.
Right.
I wasn't filled with the Holy Spirit.
Right.
Otherwise, I would have known.
You'd have nailed him with some good questions.
But Anyway, he came in, and as I was in the choir, of course, and I looked, I thought, thank you, Lord.
Yep.
You sent me a Christian. But because you see a mouse in a cookie jar doesn't make him a Christian.
That's exactly right. Make him a cookie. That's exactly right, yeah. Or a Christian. Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway.
Yeah. So then you got married, and when did you first realise that Charles wasn't actually a Christian?
Well, because I got married, and then we went to a beautiful retreat place that I'd been before for conferences, and it was absolutely beautiful in Derbyshire. And I thought he loved this, and of course there was no alcohol there, and he liked his alcohol.
Right.
He liked his horse's neck brandied ginger.
Okay.
And all he had was Schlur, which was an apple juice.
Oh, really? Interesting name, Schlur.
Schlur.
So if he'd had the alcohol, he would have slurred his speech.
That's
but
right.
Anyway, yeah.
Anyway, but the next morning after on our honeymoon, the first morning, it was Sunday, and I started, it must have been the week after. I was getting ready for church because I heard the bells.
Right, yes.
And he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to church. And I said, can't you hear the bells? And he said, yes, but we're on honeymoon. And I said, well, don't you go to church every week? No. And then I learned a lot about him. He didn't have a Bible, he didn't pray, he only came to church because he loved me.
Yes.
And I thought, Lord, you can have him. I love him. I made my promises before you. I will be a good wife to him. But please do something with him.
Wow. Great prayer.
So for the next 5 years...
God did something with him.
God did something.
And how did he eventually come to faith in Jesus?
Well, because I'd said, I was a bit naughty. I said to him, if for no other reason than you love me, because he couldn't get home every weekend.
So he was still in the Navy at this point.
He was still in the Navy.
Yeah.
I said, if for no other reason than you love me, on a Sunday night, I know you can't go to church on every Sunday morning because of your duties. I said, but on a Sunday night, will you try to go to church? I said, you may not understand it. I said, we can't be together physically, but I do believe we can be together spiritually.
Yes.
So if for no other reason than you love me...
Great. Love that.
Will you go to church on a Sunday night? And boy, this happened. And it was great. For 1.5 years, he'd chosen a nice church with sticks and stones and stained glass windows. Nobody spoke to him, and he spoke to no one.
Right.
One night, it was pouring down with rain, and he said he'd got the mahjong bricks out in the wardroom, his drink in front of him, and he thought, not tonight, Josephine.
Yeah.
But he said, your voice... if for no other reason than you love me, if for no other reason than you love me. It was just going on and on. And he said, I thought, well, I'll put my rain mac on and I'll dash to that old falling down church outside the gate, the dockyard gate, which was closer. I'll go through the ritual, as he called it. And he said, and then I can say, I went to church on Sunday night. But things were different because the two wardens shook his hand as he went in and said how nice it was to see him. And he thought, oh yes, only fools would go out on a night like this. And they put him near a pot-belly stove so he'd be warm, gave him 2 books, the hymn book and the prayer book.
Right.
And he opened them and he saw it was Anglican, Church of England.
Yes.
Church of England, St Matthew's Church of England, Stoke. Oh, he thought, well, he'll know when to stand up, when to sit down, when to put his 2 bob in the plate, as he said it.
Yep.
And he can sort of have a snooze while the man up there is preaching. But when the minister went to preach, he heard this voice, "Charles, I want you."
Wow.
And he swung round because he thought some of the sailors had come and were sitting behind him because they'd heard, that he was going to church just to please me.
Right.
And there were just two old ladies sitting there. And he turned round and the voice came again, "Charles, I want you." And he said, "You don't want me." He was having a conversation with the Lord. He didn't want me, all these people, these other people here. And he said, he just had to give in. And he said, "What do you want me to do?" And the voice said, "See the minister." So afterwards, he went to the wardens and said, "I must see the minister." And they said, "Well, he's had a very heavy day. I think it'd be better for you to make an appointment." He said, "It's a matter of life and death." And he didn't know why he was saying it.
Yeah.
But anyway, the minister took him into his study, and Charles told him the story. He says, "You'll think I've got water on the brain." He said, "But I did hear this voice." And the minister said, "And you know who that was?" And he said, "I think so." And he said, that was God. And he was calling you because he loves you. And Charles said, "He can't love me. He doesn't." He said, "I know what I'm like."
Yeah.
And he said, and the minister said, God knows all about you.
Yeah.
And he's calling you to himself. And then he was like prophetic. He said, so Charles said, "Well, what am I to do now?" And when he said that Jesus loved him, and he said, and if you were the only person on this earth, Jesus Christ would still have gone to the cross just for you.
Absolutely.
And he was a mess on the floor. And I mean, he thought he was a pretty hard-bitten sailor, but he was just a mess.
Yeah.
He said, "Well, what am I to do?" And the man spoke out, and he said, "What about the Church of England, the ministry in the Church of England?" So that was it.
Magnificent. So that was the start of him then.
That was the start of him, and then he came home the next weekend and told him, he
Told
said,
you the story.
"Sit down, I've got something to tell you," because he kept it all to himself that week. And I said, what have you done now? I was never sure what he was up to. And he said, "No," he said, and he gave me the story. And I said, "Oh, that's wonderful." I said, "I've been praying and believing for you ever since we were on honeymoon." He said, "Well, you'll be pleased about the next bit. I'm coming out of the Royal Navy and I'm going into the Church of England. I'm going to be a minister in the Church of England." I said, "You can't do that." He said, "Why?" I said, "You can't sing in tune." Well, I was thinking of
he couldn't as well.
as a choir. The choir, being in the choir, the minister would, "Oh Lord, open thou our lips," and then we all had to go from there.
Yes.
I thought, he'll give us the wrong note.
He'll lead them all astray.
Anyway.
You hadn't prayed for that bit.
No, I said, I haven't prayed for that.
Yes.
But anyway.
But God knew. The rest is history, isn't it?
That's right.
Of you two serving Jesus together for all of those decades. Absolutely wonderful. So in the meantime, Alice, you were having babies.
Yes.
4
Yes.
babies in all. How did being a mum impact your life?
Well, it made it busier. Very much busier.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I love babies, and I love playing with them and having fun with them and seeing them grow and develop, and
beautiful.
It's been beautiful.
Yeah.
It's been beautiful, and they're all different.
Yes, they are.
All different.
Yeah. They're great kids, but they're not kids anymore, are they?
No. In fact, this week, David who is 66, had to go for his injection. the
flu, was it? Yeah.
Flu and the COVID.
Right.
And when he went to pay for it, the lady behind the counter said, "Oh no, you're too old now, so you don't have to pay.
Oh, that is so funny.
He said, this is tragic news.
Yes, I'd rather pay for it. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yes.
What sort of thing would you say to young mums who are watching us on Church Online?
Well, just enjoy your children while you can.
Yes.
And spend plenty of time with them. I spent hours. I taught all the children to read before they went to school. So they had no problems. They knew even the counting with tables and things like that. But we did it we had fun.
Yes.
Learning.
Yeah.
We sat on the floor with them. And
lovely.
It was just fun.
Yeah. Spending time with your kids is so important, isn't
Yes.
it? And the best advice I got when Christy was pregnant for the first time, I had a number of people say to me, make the most of every moment because this goes so quickly.
Yes.
And I really took that on board, and I'm so glad I did, because it does go fast.
It does.
Our youngest turned 14 during the week, Trinity, and our oldest is going to be 24 this year.
Yes.
And it goes so very quickly, and I got to say, I have no regrets of the amount of time that I have spent with our kids, and it's lovely to hear the same.
Yeah. And they appreciate it.
They do.
They appreciate it.
Yes, yeah, it's wonderful, every moment. And then, of course, in the meantime, you and Charles decided that you were going to relocate your young family to Australia from England.
We didn't decide. The Lord made it abundantly clear.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that story and the challenges of moving a young family to Australia.
Well, my mother lived, my father had died, and so my mother came to live with us because she was miles away, and she was just in her 70s then, and she had no relatives at all living. So Charles said, if she wants to come, she's welcome. And she came.
Right. And was she still welcome?
Oh, yes. Well, there were times.
I'm sure there were.
There were times.
Yes.
But praise God,
yeah.
the majority, but she was a great help. And in ministry, it freed us to do so much more because she was around. But there were little times of struggles, especially when the children became teenagers.
I can imagine, yes.
Now, what were you asking me?
Yes, so what was it like bringing a young family all the way from England to Australia?
Yeah, oh no, you said something about when you decided.
Yes.
Yes, well, it was the call of Charles. He just felt that it was the right thing to do.
Right.
But he didn't discuss it with me.
Oh, okay.
The Lord said, don't share it with Alice yet.
Okay.
And so he was being sort of held back. But every time he opened the newspaper, he'd see, a picture of England with people with their umbrellas out.
Yes.
And then the other way,
in
Australia with them all lying on the beach.
Yeah.
So it was just, they were
chalk and cheese.
Yes.
Yep.
And then we went shopping, and there was in the supermarket kangaroo tail soup. Heinz, and I had never seen it before, and I've never seen it since. But
so lots of different things started to get you thinking about Australia.
Thinking, yes. And then one night, the Lord said, now you can share. And he shared with me, and I thought, I can't do this. And I was pregnant with Michelle.
Right, who's your youngest?
The youngest. And because I was having morning sickness, I hadn't had my time with the Lord. I used to have it at the night time.
Right.
So I said, just leave it with me. I'll pray about it.
Yeah.
So I went upstairs to bed, opened my Bible, and there I saw, and the Lord said to Abraham, get thee out of thy country to a land that I will show you. And it was just speaking
knew.
to me.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I yelled, Charles, Charles, came running up the stairs because I'd taken a cup of tea, thought I'd spilt it all over myself. And he says, what's the matter? I said, look what the scripture said for my reading. And he didn't know what I was reading. And that was it.
Isn't that wonderful?
So, yes.
So then bringing this young family all the way to Australia.
Yes, and we came out in the Fair Star.
Okay. Oh, you sailed out?
Sailed out,
okay.
So it was several weeks, you know.
Yeah.
And it was all right with Michelle. I'd had the baby. We had to wait till she was born.
Right, yes.
And then we used to push her in the carry cot underneath the table.
Yep.
Because that was the only place we could. And the Italian waiters used to say, "Mio bambino," and give her a banana. Mind you, she was only a few months old.
Right, yeah.
But that's what they did.
Better than a chicken's head, though, right?
Oh, yes, better than a chicken's head.
Having a banana.
Yes.
There's so much in your story, Alice, and we can't go into all the detail, of course, because of time today, but you and Charles really led a charismatic renewal at St Paul's at Fairy Meadow for several years.
Yes.
And then you stepped into itinerant ministry that literally took you both all around the world.
Yes.
What was the best thing that happened to you during the years, the travelling years?
I think...
One highlight.
One highlight. It's basically, it strengthened my faith.
Okay.
Really strengthened my faith. But it was in the healing ministry, and we were in Baguio. And a lady, the minister's wife, had brought a friend along who had had an operation on her throat, and they had severed the vocal cord, and she couldn't speak.
Okay.
So the first person, we said, well, who would like prayer? And the minister's wife brought this lady up, and she can't speak, and she wants to be healed. Well, we sort of went, because that was having known what had happened to her.
Yes.
So Charles said, you pray.
To you?
To me. And,
Pastor Buck.
And I sort of put my hand on her throat, you know, and I was praying. And Charles was praying in the spirit, and I think he was sort of, go on, go on, you know. But anyway, I finished praying, and the Lord moved Charles to say, now then, just raise your hands and say, praise the Lord, to this lady. She looked at him and she said, you know I can't speak.
She said that out loud.
Her voice came back.
Wow.
And then, of course, we said, anyone else for prayer? Well, they just sort of pinned us almost to the wall.
How wonderful.
And we didn't have to labour of praying. We just receive. And they were just, you know, it was just wonderful.
Fabulous. So good. And I'm sure you got a lot of stories
of
miracles and signs and wonders.
Yes. I mean, that was unusual.
Yes.
It was for a purpose, I'm sure.
Yes.
For many people there.
Yeah. Magnificent. I love that. And what about a low light for the travelling years? Either the worst thing or...
I think the food.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Getting used to
the chicken feet. Chicken head.
Getting used to the food, but and of course the beds, because you know in one place they didn't really have beds. They just wooden benches.
You'd have slept into some fascinating places.
One dear beautiful pastor, he gave me a mattress, which was a cardboard box, opened and put on the wooden.
Wow. But that would have made a big difference.
Well,
maybe a thin difference.
It didn't, but it was the spirit behind
beautiful.
It all.
Yeah, kindness. Back to being a parent, and also, of course, now you are a grandparent and a great-grandparent as well.
Yes.
So you have, how many great-grandchildren do you have?
6.
6?
No, grandchildren.
Grandchildren?
10.
10 grandchildren.
6 great-grandchildren.
And 6 great-grandchildren. That's wonderful. What's the difference between being a parent and a grandparent, would you say?
Well, the parent has a lot of responsibility and taking care that they don't hurt themselves and washing and everything else. But with a grandparent, you can have time to have talks with them.
Beautiful.
And they're always asking questions.
Yeah.
Or they're older now.
Yes.
But, they
When
used
they were
to say,
younger.
tell me more. Tell me what my daddy did. Tell me what...
What were they like when they were younger?
Daniel.
Yes.
Tell me what Daddy was like when he was a little boy.
Oh.
What did he do naughty?
Oh, that's so good.
things
Beautiful.
like that, yeah.
And of course, you get to hand them
And
back
then-
as well, don't
yeah,
you?
that's the big
Which
thing.
must be
Yes.
wonderful. Alice, you and I have worked together for 34 years. With Charles, of course, we worked together for 30 years, and Charles passed away 4 years ago. What's one thing that you enjoy the most about being part of Bayside Church?
Well, I think it's the family atmosphere. People. It's a family. It's not a church as such.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I do, where people just attend and then leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just love each other.
Yeah.
They care for each other.
Yeah.
And, some have been coming for year after year after
Yes.
year. And we know their stories.
Yeah.
We know where they've come from. We know their heartaches. We know their joys.
Yeah.
And I just love praying for them.
Beautiful. And they love you too. We all do. Just to finish up, what's the best thing about being 92?
Well, if I make any mistakes or I forget something, they can say, "Oh, she's getting older, She's getting older."
It's a lot of grace.
So, yes, lots of it. Yes.
I love it. Well, thanks, Alice. This has been an absolute blessing today to spend this time with you.
Yeah, thank you.
And hear a little bit of your story. It's been just absolutely wonderful. And I know that the people at Bayside love you very, very much. And if you don't know Alice yet, if you're able to come to an in-person gathering on a Sunday morning, Alice is always here, always on the front row, always praising the Lord. And she's an absolute delight to our church family. Hope we get to work together for many more years to come.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I hope so.